welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are at G2 Motorsports Park in Anatex, which is just north of Dallas. It's a 3.1 mile facility, and on today's play we're going to be comparing 991.1 GT3 RS versus the 992 GT3. The question I often get asked, we're going to put them head to head today.
Yeah, so we're looking at drivability, braking, cornering, and traction, and then just an overall feeling of, does this inspire more confidence than the other? I certainly have my opinion. Felix, what do you think?
I'm just going to go a little bit into the technical aspect. I have my opinion just because the two cars share different front suspension. You know that as well, so we kind of know what to expect from each car. The cars are on stock suspension, but they have a little bit of aero bits. I think they're super similar if on upgrade. The 991.1 has more section width in the tires, but I feel like the tire out of the 992 is a bit better. This is as you would get the car with a little bit more upgrades.
Yep.
For me, an also important thing when you're driving it on the street, besides performance, is presence, and we'll take all that into consideration.
Yep. So for me, I think the GT3 992 will pull out a little bit over the 991.2. Just the front end has changed with double wishbone. It's a lot of confidence inspiring. I rode this thing at VIR for the first time on street tires and was just shocked how well it handled, especially on street tires. So, you know, I love the 991.2 GT3 RS. You know, you got some aero golf for it in the GT3, but the new GT3 is pretty stout, so it's going to be an interesting battle.
Yeah, you say the front end's better, but in car, it's always a give and take, right? You have a better front end, is it going to take away from the rears?
Exactly.
Overall, we'll show you guys and wait for you guys to go ahead.
Sounds great.
Okay guys, we are in the 992 GT3. On first thoughts, the car feels way stiffer. You don't feel the body roll as much. Wow. So right off the rip on cold tires, you could see that the car has much more dig on the front end out of the corner. And the way I can tell so quickly is because the car is not pushing towards the outside of the track. This car does have a little bit bigger of a splitter, so the front end should feel a little bit better high speed. But we'll see. You know, it's that thing, right? Everybody says, man, this generation of car is so good. How are they going to make the next generation better? Well, Porsche figures that out. Absolutely crazy. But like I said, these two cars have the same recipe, or we lower the rear of the car just to get more compliance out of the rear. But you can definitely tell where this car has way more bite corner out. The front end just keeps digging on throttle. You know how they say it's a pendulum, right? You get on throttle, shifts the weight to the rear. You get on braking, shifts the weight to the front. But the beauty of this car is it has that upgraded suspension. So even on throttle, the front end of the car keeps some of the grip. So here I just broke too late. I'm gonna go a little bit wide. This car too, it's a little bit quieter, and they both do have just catback exhaust. I don't know how true this is, but this car feels so much quicker through there. Maybe I'm wrong. Another thing too that you struggle with after driving cars so much at different tracks is driving a track by memory versus driving by feel of the car. So I'm definitely trying to extract the most out of both of these cars. Yeah, this car just gives me so much confidence on the front end. High speed and low speed. It just wants me to roll more throttle. Let's see if we can piece a good lap in this next. Okay, I'm pushing too much. Just because I got that confidence on that front end. I'm like, it can do wonders. But no, it has a limitation. Just like everything. Turn it in. Roll. Yeah, the front end just bites on the way out. Slow speed. Balance feels great.
steering's different. Front end feels better. Rear end feels more planted. Braking gets more planted. Feels a lot more stable than the RS. We'll see what it feels like when it warms up. Brakes feel a little softer. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's me. Definitely different gearing. So blue car front end definitely more planted. Car in general is more planted. RS doesn't deal with the bumps as easily. For some reason, turn 4 or 5. This is turn 5A and B. The brakes don't want to do as much. I feel it's kind of hard to lean on them. So a lot more confidence in 6. Interesting. So how can I improve? I bettered my time in the RS. The question is, I guess, is to use the weight and to really get the car set in a corner would be more important than the RS. The RS steering does feel lighter, and it is to the point where you feel like you can understeer less than the GT3. Oh man, someone really laid down some rubber there. It does handle the bumps a little better, more compliant. You don't bounce around as much on this final back straight piece versus the RS, but somehow I can't seem to attack this last tight section, and I lose time to Felix a good amount through this tight section. So I need to figure out how to get this car rotated a lot faster through this tight section. But I don't know. I still think the GT3 would be the better of the two.
Okay guys, we are in the 991.2 GT3 RS in Miami blue flavor. I am going to be telling you guys how the car feels throughout a lap, and hopefully you guys can hear me well, as this car is kind of loud. So let's go ahead and give this car at least a lap of warm-up. Car, tires, myself. So in braking initially, the car seems to move a lot, but I think that is a track surface problem. So here we go. So on turning, this car feels pretty good, but you do have to trail brake the car. Once you start rolling heavy throttle on this car, the car does seem to blow the front end off, like right there in that mid-speed section. Into the brakes, still trail braking, because you want to keep that front end biting. The balance, the car does feel pretty good. It pushes, and in some places it wants to oversteer a little bit. I do feel it's on the pushy side, but it's obviously something that we could change through setup. Now in a track like this that's new, right, that you want to have confidence, I think the axle to worry about, at least in a Porsche, is the rear axle, just because there's so much weight down there. Like here, the car just feels good. No rear twitch or anything. The car turns and you just manage that understeer. Oops, a lot of happening in front. Yeah, you just manage that oversteer by lifting off the gas a little bit, letting the car breathe, and that front end squeezes. On power, you just slow down the application of power by rolling throttle, and the car stays pretty happy. If you not matte, but if you just floor it, yeah, that front end disappears pretty quick. car is really good and stable over corners too. I enjoy that about this car. and maybe that's a little bit stiffer, softer strung, but this car feels good. Here, easy with the throttle because the car just blows the front end off. Nice, thank you for the pass. Control brake the car. Easy on the throttle, yep. Easy on the throttle, perfect. Car feels good on the brakes. You can't go too hard on the brake pedal because you'll go straight past threshold braking and into ABS, but you could still give it a super firm pedal. You gotta get that trail to get that front end to stay happy. You say, how can Porsche make a better car? Well, they always seem to do it.
Okay guys, we're back for the final comparison of the 992 GT3 versus the 991.2 GT3 RS. Two completely different cars that are both super capable. Initially, the 991.2 GT3 RS had left our shop because the car fell out of extended warranty, and John decided to bring another one into the fleet, and we are all very much enjoying it. John, why did you decide to bring it back into the fleet?
Well, I missed it when we traded off the first version.
Okay.
And we had owned it for darn near 6 years. About 4 years. And Felix had tuned it to my preference on how the car would handle in extreme turns under a lot of power. And he finally got it perfect. I loved that car. It was one with me. And I didn't think I'd ever find another car that was like that. If I went hard into a turn where I normally feel like I lose control, the car was stable. If it slid all four wheels, which is a very comfortable feeling. And that car was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. Anybody that rode in it or drove it felt it was perfect. So we gave it up when we bought the .2. Is it?
992. Yes.
And I said, it doesn't feel right to me. And so I went out and I did a session and I beat my old time by 2 seconds on the first time I tried it. So
first time we tried the 992.
Yeah. And like, what the heck just happened? And so even though it was perfect for me meant slow. So so that's my preference, is that, and I'm hoping that we'll get this one tuned to me. And if it's tuned to me, it's tuned for anybody. But when you lose control or thinking you're losing control, when the car does not lose control, that's what you're shooting for. Down.
Of course. Ryan, so we drove both of these things for the past day and a half. Again, like I said, two incredible cars. What are your quick opinions?
Quick opinions? So I think it tracked the way I thought it was going to go. The previous generation RS is a really good driver's car. It really lets you try different things out, like John said. Even in stock form, is an incredible car. The steering is light, but man, you go to the GT3, the 992, and it's just, it holds, it produces a lot of confidence that where you don't think, you think, oh, this is heavy and it's slow. I think you look at lap times, you're like, I feel more comfortable, I feel like, in this car. And, I think each car for me would take more time to get more used to the dynamics of each platform to maybe, I think, get the most out of the car itself. But, I mean, for me, I think I would still go with the GT3.
The 992 GT3. GT3, obviously, they both said next to me, it's obviously faster on the track. I saw a decent delta split between lap times, and I thought I was pushing both cars equally. But I thought there would be a bigger split in the delta. Yeah. Because the 992 has way better suspension. I just thought the delta was bigger, so let's start breaking this down. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be braking. So we're going to be talking about braking stability in specific. Yeah. Ryan, which car do you give the point to?
I give the point to the GT3.
I think I'm on the same page. The 992 GT3 is definitely going to take my point on braking. The car just feels super planted. It's like that front end just points, John.
I agree.
Okay, so we're all on the same page with that one. Okay, cornering, John.
I got to tell you, the first time I got in it, beat my old best time by 2 seconds. It's the GT3.
Okay. And I think I'm going to go with the 991.2 GT3 RS. The reason is the electronics feel like they're not doing as much. We've all talked about this. The rear end just feels more stable. It may not have more grip, or it may have equal grip, but to me, I'm gonna give my point to the 991.2 GT3 RS. What about you?
So it's very close, and it really took me driving the blue one first, 992 GT3, going over to the 991.2 GT3 RS, back to the 992. I guess really feel that the 991.2 is lighter steering. It's in the corner. You can give it different steering angles and actually benefit. But the GT3, I feel, is more stable through the corner, in, turn in, and exit, if you can manage the electronics. And so, you know, I think if I have more time with each platform, my opinion could change. It's very close.
And the other
Both
thing,
are very close, but I would still go with the GT3.
the other thing we found too is braking, right? The 991.2 GT3 RS, it's a car you have to add additional wheel.
Yes.
And the car turns, and the 992 GT3, you kind of, you know where it's the front end that's out. So it's about, the 991.2 takes a little bit more exploring to end up getting those last few tenths out of it.
Exactly.
Next topic is traction, and I'm going to go first. Traction is super important on these cars, especially in the 911s. So the 911s, obviously the rear end of these cars plant super well, but the traction is much better on the 992 GT3, so I'm going to give it my point. And I'm going to speak of traction with steering wheel. So the car has such a good front end that the car turns on throttle. So that's why it's getting my point. If you just have a decent amount of wheel in it and the car's just not going to blow the front end off, that's what I'm giving my point to. What about your end?
So I'm actually going to give the point to the 991.2 GT3 RS, because the 992, and again, this is with the electronics, it likes to cut in a lot, and that could just be me.
True.
And so I feel like I can work the throttle better coming out of a corner and have less penalty with the RS than I do with the GT3. So for me, it's going to go with the RS, but the GT3 is, I think, once you get the electronics sorted out, or you start running with them off, with the torque, extra torque, it would definitely, I think, win over that. But
So to simplify that, it's basically the car on traction is cutting. It's basically getting into traction control, right?
Yeah.
A little bit too much.
It cuts in.
When I think it's maybe not as necessary, or the car can actually take the throttle. I did experience that as well. John, you've been in both of them. What you think?
I have to go with the GT3. I rely on the computers. There's a reason they get
They're so
Porsche
good.
built
They're
that
so good.
system, and so it takes. I would say I'm a low expert driver. These guys are expert drivers, and so I rely on the computer. I realize what the car's doing. It was uncanny in the beginning that you could feel the rear wheel steering taking over the car, but once you got used to it, it was a transition point when you would lose control of the rear end. It was never drastic because it already started that process with rear steering, and then the computer kicked in. It made me a better driver, knowing that it was not going to lose control. It was going to do it gradually.
So for balance, I'm gonna go first again, because I said it initially when we did the first segment. Is I felt like in order to get a better front end, you got to give up the rear. The 992 GT3, better front end, better rear. The balance is great. Low speed, high speed. You can't beat it.
Yep. I would agree. The GT3 is going to hit my vote too. It's just the balance overall is better than the RS, I feel.
Okay. What about you, John?
I'm still sold on that GT3.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And if, just before we wrap this up, in the aftermarket too, the prices on these two cars are pretty similar, right, John? I mean, they vary with mileage, they vary with a couple things, but the 991.23 RS in well-kept condition is, I think, about similar, right, to the GT3.
Falls this way.
Okay. John?
Yeah, let me start. I'm the least of the drivers, of the three of us. They can control any car. I became a better driver because I had computer. I trusted the computer, and it gave back to me. I could drive it all out, and I was never afraid that I was going to lose control. The computer protected me off that. So it's a fun car to drive.
So for me, overall, I would say the GT3. It inspires a lot more confidence, especially with the front end. going, track in or turn in, track out. I feel like I can hold a whole lot more. At the same time, while the GT3 does feel heavier than the RS, that also means I feel more planted when I'm loaded one side or the other. I can lean on a little bit harder than I would feel with the RS. And again, I think that's just me needing more time with the platforms, but my vote's GT3.
When I hear drivability, somehow for me in my mind it rhymes with the lap time. I'm gonna go with the 992 GT3. That thing's just so quick. It feels good in the corner, out of the corner. It's amazing.
Well, to me, it looks like the GT3 is the winner for us today. The RS is very close, but if you have a different opinion, let us know. Maybe it's a different category you would think you scored differently on. Please drop a comment.
Like, comment, subscribe, guys, and we will see you guys in the next video.